Welcome everyone to the CRM MVP podcast, episode number 97. In this episode, we're starting a new series called Love It or Hate It, in which I'm going to interview a couple of MVPs. You can see them right here on your screen if you're watching this on YouTube. By the way, if you're listening to this, go to our YouTube channel, CRM MVP Media, because we are actually recording this live, and you can see the three of us on the video if you want to do that. And, you know, you can see that we have Neil, one of my favorite people in the whole world, and Matt. I don't know
Not
if
so
I can
much.
say your middle name. Well, I just hesitated to say your middle name, that we all know.
Okay, that's fine.
Whitman, both veteran MVPs. They were MVPs before I was even an MVP, and I'm so looking forward to hear what you guys have to think about, because today we're talking about the sales app. And the sales app has been in Dynamics forever. Well, at least the functionality included in the sales app. When it was CRM, everything was just CRM. There wasn't any sales app. But I want to talk about the moving parts of the sales app, at least the 10. I put together a list of 10 things, and to get your thoughts on those, whether you love them or hate them, and why. I want to hear why you still use this or not use that or whatever it is, because I think we can all learn from that. But before we do that, why don't you do a quick introduction, Neil? Why don't you talk about, I guess, your experience with Sales App and what do you do for a living, I guess?
Hey, hi everybody. This is Neil Benson. I run Customery, and I'm on a mission to help Microsoft customers and partners build amazing business applications. I've been working with Dynamics CRM and 365 for a long time. I was going to say that sales functionality is a great topic for me, Gus, because it's been around almost as long as I have, even as long as Matt Whitman has. Some of these features are so old. So yeah, really looking forward to this session. Thanks for putting it together.
Absolutely. And you're right. The sales app is one of those things that you're like, when you hear people, it's like, I wonder how CRM4 looked back in the day. I'm like, well, let me show you. Let's open goals, and let me show you exactly how this thing used to be. All right, Matt.
Yeah, Matt Whitman. I am based in the USA, North Carolina, and I work with Hitachi Solutions, better known as the MVP Army.
That's right.
And I'm the lead architect for sales and marketing, and that's because I have been working with sales and marketing in CRM world for a very long time. Very passionate about both of those.
Awesome. So really looking forward to hear what you guys have to say. And in case of a tie, I guess I'll be the tiebreaker. I've been implementing Dynamics since 2006, and I know the sales app inside and out. Maybe not as proficient as you, Matt, when it comes to the new stuff, because I know you're on top of all that new stuff with Dynamics and what Microsoft has released pretty recently with the sales app. But in this specific episode, we're going to talk about things that have been around for a long time, because I think that the people that listen to this show either implement Dynamics or are customers that are not so much looking at the brand new stuff, but am I really doing a good job with the stuff I already have? So that's kind of the focus of this show. So let's just start, let's just go jump into the fire right away. Leads. The idea for this episode in part came because Neil had a pretty public discussion with a few people out there talking about the value of leads. I think Neil, you took a stand of like, I don't see the point of leads. I never use them. So let's talk about leads. You love them or hate them? Neil, why don't you just jump in?
I don't think I said I hate them. I said, what are you using leads for, you idiot?
All right.
So you hated the person you were talking to more
That's
than
right.
the leads, apparently.
Yeah. So I think in most of my customer deployments, leads have been the number one source of duplicates, especially in business to business, because somebody will go in and create a lead record, and the account already existed, the contact probably already existed, and they didn't look it up, didn't care, just created a lead and then converted it into an account to contact an opportunity, and now we've got duplicates everywhere. I really don't see the point, especially in a business to business scenario. I think the marketing team should be responsible for maintaining all the accounts that we could possibly work with, right? We know what our target market is, create all those accounts, import nice, clean data, and any leads that a salesperson wants to create should just be a contact, if they doesn't already exist, and an opportunity. So I hate them. Get rid of them. It's a 1995 data model that Microsoft copied from SalesLogix, and Siebel and Salesforce copied the same thing. Time to move on.
So you're just going straight to the opportunity. Yeah.
So what do you do when you have someone that or an organization that you don't really know if they buy what you sell. Let's say you're a construction company and somebody says, "Hey, I need to build something. Let's talk." At that point, you don't really know if what they need. What if they need a bridge and your company just doesn't build bridges? Don't have engineers or the skills or whatever to do it. Like, what do you do then? Do you just put them in the system as an account with a account category of prospect, or like how do you handle that?
Yeah, you'd have an account with an account category, and the category could be, you could call it a lead for all I care.
Well, there's a field called relationship type, right? Out of the box.
Yep. So call it a prospect, call it a lead, call it a suspect. I've used all sorts of terms, and that would be a potential customer who has never bought anything from us. And if I know the person, I'd create a contact record. And if I wanted to sell them something, I'd create an opportunity, and I would be a lightweight opportunity, and I'd qualify that as quickly as I could. And if they didn't want to buy anything from us, I'd close it off and away we go. Move on to the next one.
So let me ask you this, Neil. How do you distinguish, let's say you have an existing customer, you've got the account, you've got a contact, and you've got that, so the relationship type shows customer.
Right.
And then you find out they download some information, or you ask you for some information about something. You still don't know if it's a legit opportunity. Does that person even have buying authority? Is it a good fit? Are they even in the right, business? How do you do with that?
Matt, I think deep down you really love leads. You're trying to talk me around.
just playing devil's advocate here.
Oh, there's a little bit of love in there in your heart, Matt, I can tell. You would have you'd maybe have a score on that contact if they have been engaging with your website. Marketing teams should be able to take care of that for us. And if that person has tripped over a score, then perhaps we create an opportunity for them. Maybe we pass that off to the sales team to go and qualify that. It's not hard.
Okay, so I'm a big fan of keeping things simple. I don't think that leads should be used in every project, but I do have an issue with kind of your approach in this specific scenario, because when you say, for example, like, well, the main reason I don't like leads is because there's an opportunity there for duplicates. All of the ways that you have to avoid duplicates if you're not using leads, let's say if you're going straight to contacts and accounts, can be used with leads. Duplicate detection looks across entities. So you can check for a duplicate on an account or a contact level when you're entering a lead. It actually checks for both at the same time. If you're doing that separately, meaning entering an account and a contact, you have to do it twice, whereas with a lead, you do it once. So I feel like there are some scenarios where doing leads is actually faster and better to keep it cleaner. And also, when you say, for example, I create records like accounts and contacts, and if I can't sell them what they want, like they want a bridge, we don't make bridges, then I just close it out. Well, what does that mean? Are we talking about like deactivating accounts, or I just feel like in certain scenarios, leads make sense, but not every time.
So I will take you one better. I don't think duplicates are an issue at all. So I'll tell you, I told you this in the email before, Gus. I've had a religious conversion when it comes to leads. I hated leads for years. Back when I was at Click Dimensions, the way that our application worked with leads was kind of the out-of-the-box intended way, where you tried to avoid that duplicate, so you created a lead, and the intention was it got converted to a contact and or an account and so forth. And I remember having arguments with some partners where they were just like, this is wrong, this is not the way it should work, and they gave me all these different reasons, many of the ones that you guys have mentioned. But I'm going to open myself up to some criticism here. Over the last year working with Dynamics Marketing, I am converted to the way Dynamics Marketing treats leads.
So tell us about that, Matt, because I don't know the marketing application as well as I do the sales. And my understanding is there's slightly different definitions. So
yep.
Yeah, I'd love to find out more.
So the easiest way to think about leads today is as an expression of interest. And a lead is always parented by a contact. So you don't have duplicates. What you have are multiple expressions of interest. So it's kind of the best of both worlds, because you get, when a lead comes in, if you have a form from your website creates a lead, it also creates a contact as the parent. right? So it's not orphaned out there. This does a couple of good things. One is maybe you find out they're looking for bridges and we don't sell bridges. You still got them in the system, and that first expression of interest, that first lead, you could say disqualified. They come back later, 6 months later, they fill out another form for something you do sell or that they are a good fit for. Now you have another expression of interest, and you can say, hey, 6 months ago they were looking for a bridge. So you start building up this history of those interactions underneath the contact. So that's the first big benefit that sold me, is you see this history of this expression of interest. And it's simple enough. Lead comes in, you create a contact, map over some of those fields, and link them. And then from that point forward, your marketing systems handle creating that lead underneath those contacts. That also lets you do a couple other things. Let's say you sell different products or have different divisions in your company, and that lead comes in for product A, and then later comes in for product B, and they have their two vastly different sales cycles. Now, each lead can be handled by the sales team in their own sales cycle. And you can see how they're qualified, what stages they're in. And then recently I was working with a customer who your point, Neil, about scoring, they had tried using different mechanisms for scoring, some different systems and tools, and their salespeople were very resistant to it because they were like, I don't know what is it really a legitimate score? It says 100. Is that even real? Was it 100 6 months ago? Is it ticking down? I don't know. And so they just started ignoring them. What we started doing was saying, what if every night we run a system, or now, use flow. We run a flow, and we go out and we augment that lead with some other information. Maybe we match it up against some external data to see if we can enrich that lead to find the information that the sales team is interested in. Marketing team captures first, last name, email address, and company, but the sales team's really interested in, like, well, what's their job title? Have they been at that company a long time? Other things you can enrich it with. And you go into CRM and say, have they even bought from us before? Have they been in a part of a failed opportunity before? So you can run some automation and enrich that lead without messing up your nice contact and all that other information, and then hand that lead off as a marketing qualified lead to the sales team.
Interesting. I mean, I think that
like
in some cases, leads can also create confusion, and it can make things complicated. I'm working with a customer right now, for example, where they go to trade shows and stuff, and they want to have a database of leads they can reach out to and then qualify. They say, we qualify a small amount of all those people. I mean, they want to just win the PS5. They just give you their card, and then later on you call and they don't want to buy anything. So they saw the value on that. But then at the same time, some of those leads are interested in multiple products, and that creates problems, because if somebody is interested in, let's say, 2 or 3 products, well, what do you do then? You can't qualify them into one opportunity, because they might want product 1, but product B they don't really want, and then product C they want to think about it. Or they might be interested in a motorcycle, for example. I know you, Matt, you like motorcycles. They say, I'm thinking about these 2 or 3 models. I'm not going to buy all 3. I'm going to buy one of the 3. So what do you do then? Do you create why not? Yeah. Do you create one opportunity for all 3 models? How do you handle that? You close them as loss and the other one as well. It can make it complicated, but along with that complication, let's move on, because I feel like we can do a whole episode about just leads. Along with that complication, the sales process in the sales app has been the same forever, which is you start with a lead, then you qualify that into an opportunity, you create quotes for that opportunity. Eventually, one of those quotes is won and moves into an order and an invoice, and we know the rest, and we're going to talk about the rest. But how about quotes? How do you like the quoting system in Dynamics? Do you use it? Do you love it? Do you hate it? What do you guys think?
No. Have you ever seen anybody using quotes in Dynamics, like, for real?
Hey, I did about 10 years ago.
Yeah.
Real life.
I mean, never mind orders and invoices. I mean,
I love quotes. I love the configuration features there for building complex products. Oh no, that's not there. You have to buy an add-on for that.
Yeah,
I love how
I
love how you can generate a quote document and send it to your customer in one click. No, you can't do that either.
actually, you can now.
Oh.
You can now.
Okay.
With Word
What,
templates?
No,
15
export to
years.
PDF, new feature.
Oh, that's
and
right.
way
There's
to-
export to PDF button. That's true.
And
I
how
saw that.
about generating a web page where your customer can actually come in and amend the quote, take more products, less of that one, remove that line item, and then convert the quote into an order. Can you do that yet? No.
So can I tell a story?
For sure. Go for it.
Can we quote you on it?
Yeah. No, don't tell anybody else, guys.
All right.
No, this is a former life at a consulting firm before I was at Click Dimensions. This is a long time ago.
Wow.
Got brought
Back
in
in the day.
sales manager, this manufacturing company, European manufacturing company with an office here in the U.S. And sales manager was like, "We need a CRM system." I talked with him. I met with him and talked about what he wanted and everything. Sounded legit. So the next step was he arranged a meeting with the senior leadership, and the German CEO had flown in. And now we're gonna pitch the CRM to him and sit down at the table. And the CEO kicks off by talking about how excited he is that we're going to be building a system to allow his customers to configure their products and get their quotes online, and that the quoting system and going directly into orders and then for like pricing and payments and all. He's so excited. And I stopped about 30 minutes in. I had brought up another partner with me who did ERP. And I stopped him. He went for 30 minutes, and I said, and he's the CEO. I was much more junior in my career at the time, so it took me a while to speak up. But I said, "Sir, that's not CRM. What you want is an ERP system." And he chased me out of the building, like I was like wasting his time.
Wow.
But I left the other partner there. I don't think he ever called me again because it didn't really go well. So that's my story. And since then, I've learned, to qualify. When I start hearing people talking about quotes and orders and invoices, I'm like, let's really understand what it is that you're trying to accomplish here, and if CRM's the right place for that.
Exactly. And yeah, man, those discussions are always interesting when you go in and they're like, man, I'm so excited about this system because it's gonna do X, Y, Z, and you're like, that's not at all why I'm here. But we can do that, but it's not what we're here for. So I think, in some cases for super simple businesses, quotes make sense. You can see it in implementations. For example, I did an implementation for a company that sells concrete. For they use the opportunities for a project. Let's say they're building a mall or something. That's the opportunity. And then the quotes are all of the contractors that quoted their, project, essentially the building, essentially, and then they can close the ones that lost and keep the one that won. I think that in some cases it makes sense, but for sure not in a whole lot of cases, unless you enhance it with a third party.
Yeah, if it's not a high volume business where the salespeople are accustomed to sitting down and building a quote, and it's going to take some time, and and the process usually has a revision or two. Okay.
Now, in terms of orders and invoices, have you guys actually seen a company using those entities and the functionality in those entities?
A long time ago, I customized orders to manage subscription services that we were selling. We were actually hosting Dynamics CRM 3.0 and 4.0 way before CRM Online. And we used orders to manage all the subscriptions. And it was really tough. There's no easy way to manage subscription sales in Dynamics 365, even today. The whole data model assumes you sell a widget and you get paid for it straight away. But yeah, that was a lot of customization to get that one to work. And I think that's the only time I've ever used orders.
Yeah, I can't remember a time using orders and invoices, honestly. I think the only times I've seen them being used is when there's an integration with an ERP system, something like that, just to record paid invoices or past orders, things like that, but not where they've originated in the CRM.
I agree. You do get to see them once in a while as an integrated entity coming from their ERP system, but nowadays I wonder if instead of doing integrations, if it makes more sense to look into things like virtual entities to be able to see those orders and invoices in another system rather than integrating it and storing that data twice. Do any of you guys have experience with virtual entities?
Neil, you've done a lot, haven't you, with virtual entities?
I did extensive work with virtual entities, not for orders and invoices, but for activities. So we had all the interactions every time you visited a web page, every time you opened an email, every time you came into a store, every time you called us, every time you opened an insurance policy, every time your policy expired. All those things were all getting stored in a third-party data store called Interactions. It was Azure SQL database we built, and we rendered those inside Dynamics 365 as a virtual entity. Yeah.
I mean,
Nice.
what would you gain? What would you gain from using the native orders and invoices entity in an integration as opposed to just creating a virtual entity? I mean, it seems to me like you wouldn't really gain anything. You'd probably have more headaches if you tried to integrate instead of just using virtual entities to display that data.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
if you wanted to use the standard entities, then you're bound to that data model, right? The product catalog and invoice line items and invoices and the way that those work. So you'd have to
Order
map all your
status,
data.
invoice status, all that stuff for sure. I think showing it gets rid of actually a lot of problems that you might be struggling with when it comes to the integration. Integrations are very expensive depending on how intricate the ERP system is and all of that. So if you could just show the information directly from the ERP system, I think that's better. There are things you could be able to do, like orders and invoices have owners, so you could assign those records to some people and then, I don't know, do some reporting and say, show me orders by owner or invoices by, or whatever. Like there are some scenarios that I can see that you could get some advantage, but honestly, I think there's a lot more to gain by using virtual entities than integrating them and showing them.
So I have a question about that. So if I recall, virtual entities, first of all, it needs to be an OData source and you need a GUID, right?
Right.
Right.
So if you're bringing it in from an external system, Neil, like when you did that project, did you had SQL Server in between where you built your own OData service, added a GUID to the records?
Yeah,
So
generating a GUID's
you
pretty
weren't
easy.
drawing directly from whatever the actual source of that data was.
Well, there was multiple sources. It was actually Dynamics 365 was one source, but there was the content management system driving all the web interactions. There was an insurance system, roadside assistance system, lots and lots of different ways that customers could interact, all poured their interactions into this interactions database. And yeah, because we built the OData API, we added a GUID to everything, it was pretty easy to control. If you were drawing orders and invoices out of a SAP ERP system, you might not be able to add a GUID. You might be a constraint on that. So you might have to dump it into, again, a third party or in the middle database where you can add your GUID and go from there.
Sounds like
Kind
you've
of
rebuilt.
staging table.
Yeah, you rebuilt customer insights.
Yeah.
Yeah, you just pretty much charge them to do something that already exists. Great. All right, so let's move on to number 4, sales territories. This thing has been around Dynamics forever, and it's pretty much like out of the box fields. The territory field is in the account entity and a few other entities, but other than being a lookup to the territory entity, is there any other value of using sales territories?
I've used them in a couple of projects in a really simple sense when all you need to do is extend that territory entity with a couple of fields, maybe to store, for example, postcodes or zip codes that are associated just in a comma separated string. And then a plugin will fire when an account is created, figure out what the account zip code is, look up the appropriate territory and tag the account with that territory. Really simple stuff like that. But there's a lot of complex sales organizations with very complex territory management requirements that just don't work in that very simple model.
You end up enhancing it, right? I mean, you go like sales territory, then region, then area, and so it's like multiple lookups where sales territory is just one of them. But for the most part, if they're using it, it always needs to be a little bit more than what's out of the box. Matt, you were going to say something?
Last time I used sales territories in a project last year is the same way that Neil described. We added a related zip code, postal code table, and each territory contained X number of postal codes, and so then we could match that at the account level. But to me, it only works if your territories are if they're geographically defined and they don't overlap. One thing I see many organizations struggle with is that they have territories and then they have teams. Like they may have a team set up for that region, North American, West region sales team, something like that, and they end up, it just ends up looking like they're trying to use 3 or 4 different ways to tackle the same problem. I don't know. It seems to me like there should be a better solution than either one of those.
Right, and there's always more questions. Like there's a field out of the box in the sales territory that is the territory manager, and I think there's some restriction on that. Like you cannot have more than one manager for sure. It's only a lookup. But then I think the same person cannot manage more than one territory. It's just weird. Is there's some restrictions on it that doesn't really work well. So I think, and this is one of those things that, I mean, has sales territories ever been changed or enhanced? I don't remember. I think this is the way it's been forever. They've never done anything with it, so who knows?
It's one of
All
the,
right.
I mean, that's one of the examples where you go back into, I mean, how long have sales terrors been around? Since 1.2, 3.0, probably
Yeah.
since
Who knows?
first versions. And it should have been a lesson to Microsoft, like in your first party apps, don't build something in a lockdown way that you couldn't build on the platform today yourself,
Right.
Right.
but they haven't learned that lesson.
I'm listening to an audiobook called Gut, which is all about your digestive system at the moment. And sales territories reminds me of the appendix, right? It's a vestigial, a little stump that nobody knows what it's used for. And might have been.
And it might kill you someday.
Yeah.
Okay, so look, we had an episode that was called, I think it was like user adoption magnets or something like that, where I talk about some of my favorite features in Dynamics that when you do it right and when they fit for a specific company, they can be a huge attraction for users to get into the system and use it more and, be accurate with their data, enter it on time, that kind of thing. And goals was one of those things. For the companies that have implemented goals and have adopted goals, users love it because most users in CRM don't have access to ERP to look at revenue numbers and stuff like that, especially when customers can go behind the scenes and just reorder without having to create another opportunity. So showing goals and goal metrics for some companies, not every company, is really valuable. But goals is one of those things that, once again, hasn't been enhanced for whatever many years or decades at this point. What do you guys think about goals? Have you used them? Like, do you like it or hate it? What do you think?
I've implemented them once for a customer scenario years ago when they first came out, because I just was confident Microsoft would keep improving them. But to me, they're overly complicated for ongoing use. You have to set them up and then go back and keep administer. Just a lot of maintenance overhead to continue to administer them, and they're hard to understand for end users with goal metrics and the roll-ups and all that. So
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, I haven't come up with anything better to do that. I think they work great on demos when you have it already built out and you can demo it.
They are awesome.
I really like them. I've implemented them a couple of times for sales organizations who need to track that stuff. And like you said, Gus, I think it can be a real, user experience delighter when it's done right. I had one client though who, I don't know, maybe 50 or 60 salespeople, wanted to have a goal per account, per month, per product line. So you multiply all those things together. So 50 salespeople times 12 months times 10 products times 150 accounts, and you have to maintain 5 million goals.
Exactly.
Yeah, and can get a little bit much.
I don't know if you guys
Sounds
go
efficient.
through this. When I'm being a solution architect in a project and the customer says something like, we need a way to track numbers and our progress against them. In my brain, I don't say this out loud. In my brain, I'm like, oh, goals. And then they say, and those numbers change every month. And I'm like, no goals. It's like a roller coaster. It's like, yeah, I think I can use, no, let's do something else.
Microsoft has recently updated they've added the sales forecasting feature, which is pretty slick. Like if your sales model fits, they have a couple of models built into it and it has goals underlying it. So I don't know, maybe there's more hope for some flexibility there.
Yeah, I've done it in the past where you can data import them. So you can import goals in bulk, and it works somewhat, but it's an administration nightmare. But it's one of those things where you say, to your customers, like, look, we can use this functionality, but it will require a lot of administration, and management. And some customers are cool with it, so they get to implement it. Within goals, obviously, there's one thing we have to set, which is a date frame. You have to specify if this is a monthly goal, quarterly, yearly, whatever. And one of the options in there is fiscal years. Do you guys like? I know there's fiscal years in Dynamics, but do you use it like with on your implementation? Is that an intricate piece of your solutions?
Yeah, a lot of organizations here in Australia use 30th of June. It's a fiscal year for the tax office and everybody else. So very common.
I think that I always like having the fiscal period set up in the system because it drives views. So out of the box views and charts, looking at opportunities by fiscal period, things like that. So
yeah, it's cool. I think, like I said, goals is one of those things that if it was simpler to do and to use, it would be, it's one of those magnets, to draw people in. And I think, the next thing that we're going to talk about is I want to talk about gamification, because I think just like goals that can be attractive for salespeople out there, gamification is also pitched as something like that. The ability for you to track your performance over a period of time, and at the same time compete with your coworkers or other teams. It can be also a team thing, in order to get you motivated to use the system and enter data and track your calls or sales or whatever it is. Have you guys implemented gamification though? Because I feel that it would get old quick. Like, you can probably do gamification for like the first quarter, and then it's like, oh, okay, here we go again for another. Like, people are gonna get, sick of it quickly.
are you like? Do you remember Pablo Peralta's? He came out with gamification before Microsoft did.
CRM gamified.
They should have bought his solution. That's the only one I've ever implemented, and I implemented it for our sales development reps, SDRs at Click Dimensions. That model worked perfectly because they all sat in a cubicle farm with a big monitor, and like their boss sat in the office. He was like the guy who would come out with his coffee cup every once in a while, look up at the monitor, and they'd all start dialing again. That worked great. That part worked great. That was their whole job. And it was fun because they were always looking up. It was nice to see who was on the leaderboard. And then if something got hit, they'd be like a little fireworks thing on the monitor. It was for that environment, that kind of sales effort. I thought it was pretty cool. And they may still be using it.
Interesting.
I have a theory about Microsoft's gamification acquisition. Do you remember it was made a few years ago? And I agree with you that CRM gamified would have been a stronger acquisition, much better fit. The one that Microsoft made had no integration with Dynamics, had to build that. That team.
I don't remember the name. Do you remember the name?
It was like a baseball team thing.
Right.
You could choose. Yeah.
So the guys that built that were based in Austin. Bob Stutz, who's the general manager for CRM at the time, also based in Austin. I wondered if he just went out drinking on 6th Street one night, bumped into these guys and ended up buying their company. Some of my favorite sports weren't in there. There was no tiddlywinks. There's no dressage. There's no curling. All these very American sports. But no. Never touched
like
it.
Cricket.
No cricket.
And I remember, I think it was in one of the MVP summits, somebody asked, like, why don't you just do like a simple sport, like tug of war? Like, just keep it simple. Arm wrestling, like just easy, one versus the other. Why cricket and curling? Like, it doesn't, it doesn't make any sense. I'm trying to remember the name of the company. And I do agree with you. There might be some truth to that. They went out drinking, and it was probably one of his old like army buddies, and he's like, you don't have any authority. And they was like, oh, I promise you I have authority. He's like, really? All right, buy my company then. Prove it.
We need we need a hall of shame from that period of acquisitions. There was Marketing Pilot.
Marketing Pilot.
Several.
What was the customer service one? I forgot already.
The Field One.
Field One worked out okay.
That's still the core. Isn't that still the core of?
Yeah.
I feel like it started with an A. I
Oh,
forgot.
that's the knowledge management. Yeah, of course.
Oh,
Yes, I
yeah,
forgot.
yeah, yeah, yeah. No, Parature.
Hey,
Parature, yes.
Parature. Didn't start with an A.
Yeah.
sorry to all the Parature
Yeah.
NetBreeze.
fans out there.
They also
Oh
bought
yeah,
NetBreeze,
NetBreeze.
right?
Rode that one
Social
also.
Around that time,
engagement.
man.
Yeah. Yeah.
They went
Yeah.
crazy. And I thought it was funny with social engagement. I mean, I love that product. I thought it was cool. That it could capture that. Like, I don't know if it was super accurate or not, or I'm sure it has a bunch of pitfalls, but I thought it was cool. I compare with Parature and Marketing Pilot, like, the best acquisition they made out of all of that, period, was NetBreeze. I thought so, at least.
Yeah.
And I don't know why they killed that product. I guess maybe because of customer insights. Who
No,
knows?
there's still not a there's still nothing in the Microsoft ecosystem. Since I work on marketing deals all the time, that's always something everybody's looking for social listening. Um, there's not a good there's not a good Microsoft product to slip in there.
Yeah, for sure. So a few minutes ago, we were talking about orders and invoices, and before that, obviously, we talked about quotes and opportunities. And I think there's one common thread across all those entities, which is the product catalog, right? We use the product catalog, or theoretically, you're supposed to use the product catalog in order to add these products into an opportunity, then later on create quotes, orders, and invoices from there. How do you guys feel about the product catalog? We did a whole show about this. Me and Gustav Westerlund did a whole show where we explore every feature and everything you can do with it, just because we wanted to. I think a lot of people don't understand everything that can be done with it. But you guys are in the real world. How do you feel about the product catalog?
I think it's a tough one because for very simple sales organizations with just a couple of products, with maybe a very simple accounting system, you have to set up quite a lot of stuff in the product catalog to get it to work. You have to set up price lists and discount lists and orders and families,
Units of measure.
units, yeah, and that can be quite a lot to get your head around. It takes a bit of consulting effort to get all that done and maintain. And you only sell like bottles of water, right? And that's all you sell. And
Yeah.
On the other hand, there are companies with thousands or millions of stock keeping units, SKUs in their warehouses, and they've got a massive ERP to manage all of that. And there's inventory and warehouses and replenishment rates and some very complex stuff going on that they then have to try and mash into the Dynamics 365 product catalog, and it doesn't really fit. So I think the current product catalog is kind of stuck in the middle, too complicated for very simple deployments, not complicated enough for enterprise deployments. And maybe there are some mid-size organizations where it is a sweet fit. I haven't worked with too many of those yet, but it would just to hear what your experience is there as well.
Yeah, I recently deployed it and actually used it at the outset when I started doing discovery with a client. My previous experience with product catalog had scared me away from it, but I chatted with Joel Lindstrom, and he assured me, "Hey, it's more powerful than you think. You should give it another try." So yeah, you run into it. Actually worked out. I think this customer was one of those mid-size, at least their sales team was. They had a whole nother system to manage all of their. They actually do have maybe hundreds of thousands, if not a million SKUs. But what they used
Wow.
it for was a team that sold more complex. So they weren't tracking down to the penny and the dollar. They wanted like product families and general line items that described what they were going to sell in that deal, and they could put in the dollar amounts. I mean, the nice thing about it is if you use the out of the box product catalog and opportunity products, then you can get that automated calculation of the estimated
Right.
revenue on the opportunity. And
Yep.
so there's good things about it, and you can add some fields and things like that. But sometimes you do have to hack a little bit
You
to get
do.
it to work exactly right.
You do. It's not very flexible. The entities in the product catalog are not easy to customize. I even for simple things that you could do on another entity with just like a business rule or something, you need code. When you're looking at, price list items and all that stuff, it's just complicated to work with. I think that, when it comes to product families and bundles and all of that, I've never been able to really crack that. It always seems so complicated. It's like, if I add the products and then I create the families, I cannot put the products inside the families because the families were created after the products. Like, why? Why is that a limitation? Why do I have to do the families first? Like, what if 5 years down the line I come up with a new family and I want to? Well, you can't do that. You have to go back and delete your like.
Or
Why is it so?
somebody's put a product family back into draft or something like that, and all of a sudden you're like, where did my products go, or how do I,
Those moving parts, I think, is, I mean, if it's too complicated for us, like, imagine just your regular admin person in charge of, inventory at some company. They'll be like, I have no idea what this is. Like, it's super complicated. So for me, it's like I get to use it actually often. I'm personally a big fan of the suggestions functionality within the product catalog. I think that's cool. I think that, being able to go into an opportunity and say, well, show me some accessories for this thing, or show me some replacements. Like, somebody's, you're trying to sell, I don't know, an MRI machine, and they're like, actually, our room is not big enough. Do you have anything else? Well, let me check. Suggestions. Boom. Here are 3 MRI machines that would, be, kind of like the one you're interested on, but smaller or whatever. I like that. But, when it comes to bundles and all of that, and, I know that you can put in, an iPad and add in like the characteristics and say this one has more storage or it's black or versus silver. But I when we go there, I'm like, let's just go full RFQ. Like, I'm not going to use the sales, the product catalog for that.
Right.
So I agree with you. I think for me, I implemented when the company has a simple enough that fits the product catalog that requires it, but not complex enough that I'm going to go into bundles and families and all of that. I think that's where I draw the line. When you're working with opportunities, obviously the ultimate goal is to win the opportunity, but sometimes you actually lose the opportunity. And when you lose the opportunity, there's one field that pops up that is, right there, which is the competitor, right? It allows you to pick the competitor that you lost it to. I think that's a cool piece of functionality. But if you open the actual, like, the competitor entity, there's a lot of stuff in there. Like, when you enter a competitor, there's strengths, weaknesses. Like, what do we know about these people who work? Like, there's just a lot of information. So what do you guys think about the competitor, and do you actually use it or pitch it in solutions?
Matt, what do you think?
I have, yes, used a competitor, and like to have opportunities even before you close them, track who the competitor is that you're, aware of, or competitors that you're working against on that opportunity. But have never ever seen anybody want to use any of the other things that are kind of baked into it. It's really just a name of another company, just so they can do some basic reporting and see, who are they losing to, or who do they come up against frequently. That's about it. I think it's important. I mean, it's definitely an important data point, but
I quite like it, Gus. If that's all you want to do, just, associate the opportunity with the competitors in your market that might be head to head with you on this opportunity. It's perfect for that. I had one organization where the sales director wanted to know which salesperson at the competitor organization was running the opportunity on that side. And so, so they wanted to use accounts and contacts so they could, track that person as a contact, with the idea of recruitment later, right? So if we keep losing to Matt Whitteman, I'm gonna tap Whitteman up and offer him a job. So they did that. Instead of using the competitor entity, they just had an account type and some contacts. Didn't tell the marketing team, and so the marketing team included competitors in some of their marketing communications. That was a bit of an embarrassing snafu. So remember to tell your marketing team about a new account type. But otherwise, competitors, serve a nice little purpose. I haven't seen anybody need to extend it. If you do have some sophisticated competitor tracking, just go and use a special type of account entity, and that works fine.
For sure. I've never seen anyone like, actually, let me open the competitor and like, let me take a stab at analyzing all this information inside the competitor entity to
No.
figure out how I'm going to tackle this opportunity. No one reads that. Like you said, Matt, you can just hide all those fields on the competitor form and just leave the name, and they'll be happy with that.
Yep.
So it's just the name of a competitor. But I do like the fact that Microsoft baked in the functionality, even from the lead. Like if you decide to use the lead entity, there is competitors in there. So if you at the lead level, you know that they're working with someone else because they told you like, hey, I've been talking to this company, but I don't know if they can do it. What about you guys? Perfect. Let me put them in as competitors. When you qualify that into an opportunity, they move, right? You can see the competitors at the opportunity level. So I quite like that. So yeah, to name competitors that you lost it to, great. I've seen this also for reporting later on. So like, let's go back on the last 12 months and look at lost opportunities by competitor and see maybe we're losing to a competitor that is located in a certain region or whatever. And just because it's closer to those customers, we don't have a presence there. We're losing that deal. Whereas if he was closer to us, we will kill him every time. So maybe we should just open a location there and get that business. So it can be pretty useful. Another piece of functionality that has been around in the sales app forever is sales literature. How do you guys feel about it? And actually, because some people might be listening to this that have never even seen this thing, which is interesting. Like I work with customers sometimes, it's like, well, we've been using Dynamics since 2015. And then we get to that and they're like, what is that? This is new. And I'm like, no, it's not new.
I had to go, when you sent the list of the kind of things we'd be talking about, I had to go and look at sales literature again. I'm like, I haven't looked at sales literature in 12 years. I don't know. Is that still in there?
Okay, but so for the people listening to the show that might not be aware that that's even there, can one of you talk about what sales literature is? How do you use it? What's it supposed to do?
So in the olden days, before the internet, you used to phone up a company and say, hey, can you send me your catalog, please? And the sales literature would be a way of somebody responding to that inquiry and fulfilling your request for a physical catalog to be mailed out to you. And so you could track all of the brochures and catalogs and data sheets and flyers that you had sent somebody using the sales literature.
So I only looked at it for the first time in like 12 years yesterday, but you can actually email. So you can upload a PDF like a sales slick or something. Yeah, and now there's a send as email attachment right there. It opens up an email window. It automatically attaches it. I don't think you could do that back in the old days.
No,
I think you had to like download it.
2016.
It was just like a place to save it.
Yep. Yeah.
Yeah, no, now if you do it through Outlook, there's a button there that says attach sales literature or whatever, and then you pick it and it will attach it as an attachment on your email. So the idea is you don't have that PDF that there's 3 versions around the office and no one knows which one the last one is. You just upload them to Dynamics. Again, this is the idea. You upload them to Dynamics, and when people use sales literature, they always get the latest. So even if it was updated yesterday, I'm doing it today. I'm doing the same thing I do every day. What's the latest price list? What's the latest whatever document? You pick it, you get the latest every time. That's the idea behind sales literature. I like the fact that they can be connected to products. So if you're, for example, working with a product, you go to sales literature and it shows you just for that product. So there are things you can do with it, but at the same time, we know how valuable storage is these days in Dynamics, since they kind of increase the price for data. And I don't know if sales literature counts as files, to be honest. Files is way cheaper than regular data. But I'm hesitant to use sales literature, mainly because you're storing all this stuff in a database rather than SharePoint or somewhere else.
Most organizations today want to make all that literature available on their website for customers to self-serve, right? If you want the instructions for your vacuum cleaner, the vacuum cleaner manufacturer doesn't want you phoning up their customer service center and requesting a hard copy to be mailed out or an email copy to be attached. They just want to give it to you, right? Make it easy to find, download, done. And yeah, I think marketing teams are much more likely to maintain that external customer-facing set of literature. They're never going to remember to update the literature item in the CRM system. It just never has happened in my lifetime. So
yeah, no chance. Awesome. All right, we're coming close to the end here. Let's talk about the out-of-the-box sales reporting, dashboards, pipeline charts, etc. that come out of the box. what do you think about it? Like, I know Ulrich, which, by the way, I'm just publicly going to admit that I invited him to this show specifically so he can vent about the pipeline charts. Uh, he took a rain check on that, but we all have seen him before. He's not a big fan of the funnel that comes out of the box in Dynamics. Has been around since whatever CRM 20. I don't remember whenever dashboards were introduced
2011,
back
right.
in the days. And they've never changed it. So what do you guys think about the out of the box charts and dashboards? Do you love them? Do you get to use them? Do you tweak them, or do you just do your own thing and just deactivate or hide whatever comes out of the box?
Yeah,
I think.
Go ahead, Neil.
Well, I think they're a good starting point for some people, and it can give you an inspiration as to the type of stuff you can do. But whenever a client comes to you and says, "I just want to use Dynamics out of the box," like, it doesn't work out of the box. The charts and dashboards are a good example. They report on the wrong things. You maybe added some custom fields. The opportunity don't show up until you customize the charts and dashboards. So they need some work. And I'm wondering if the charting technology is just ready to, be retired, and we're much better going with Power BI and having a simple set of example Power BI charts and reports and dashboards, and retire the Dynamics 365 custom stuff, which I think has been updated with the unified interface, but it's not as capable as the classic web charts and dashboards. So there's some work to do there. But why invest in that when Power BI is the future? So yeah, I think it's good for people to be able to access some of that stuff in the CRM system rather than have to go off to their Power BI dashboard. But I think it's
but you can now embed Power BI dashboards and tiles inside of Dynamics, so they can, I guess, look at Power BI inside of Dynamics. They don't have to go to Power BI.
Yeah.
But what do you guys think is the biggest, I guess, reason why Microsoft is not just going, you know what, let's just do Power BI and none of this other stuff?
It's separate licensing. I mean, that's, I think, probably the biggest blocker right now, because it makes sense to use Power BI. It's much more powerful analytics tool than you can get with the charts. I like the charts and dashboards. I almost always, in every implementation, will build some new charts and dashboards right in Dynamics, because they're simple. I especially like the charts in line with views. You can display a chart and it filters the view as you're clicking into the chart. And now we have these new interactive dashboards at each entity level. But yeah, I think Microsoft came out last year with a Power BI hack that you can download. It's called like Sales Analytics dashboards, and it's awesome out of the box. There's tons of reports built. I mean, it's all obviously based on what's in the system, so you'd have to customize it, like you mentioned, Neil, if you had custom fields and so forth. But it's a great start right out of the box. Install that. But yeah, I think the thing that gets in the way then is the licensing on Power BI for larger organizations who only.
What about timing, though? What about timing? Because one huge advantage of out-of-the-box charts is they're real time. Like, you create a record, they show it to you right away. Power BI is not that way. Now, you can make it near real time. You can deploy the data export service and do direct SQL from Power BI, and like, it reads pretty close, like within 3 seconds or so. It's not in real time like the out-of-the-box, but the fact that it's near real time, I think for most businesses, 3 seconds is like real time. Like, look, if I create an order and 3 seconds later you show it to me, I'm going to call that real time. I don't care. So for most companies, they'll be cool with it. But you have all these other things, all this data export push into Azure. Like, you have to pay for Azure now. And like, there's more to it. There's no way to just go to Power BI, put in your URL or whatever for Dynamics and just have it be direct SQL. I don't know why.
It's getting better. You have the TDS. You can now use TDS to connect Power BI to Dynamics. So that's that SQL layer. What's nice is that that's one of the other big, I think, factors that had prevented it, is that if up until TDS, it was very difficult to enforce security from Power BI to model the security that you had in Dynamics. And if you changed a privilege in Dynamics, you had to go and rework your report in Power BI. But with the TDS endpoint now, that's handled for you. So that might be also another big factor that will open up
Right.
more adoption.
For sure. There's a bunch of features in Power BI that I really love. Like I love the alerts, for example. If this number gets to whatever, send me an email. If it gets low to this level, send me an email or whatever. Like I like the fact that users can manipulate the alerts and the fact that we no longer have like 6 or 7 objects as a limit. You can have a dashboard with 30 if you want to.
Yeah.
So you can have it all in one place. I like that a lot.
I think more and more medium-sized and larger enterprises are doing less and less, in-application reporting. They've got a data warehouse of some kind, and they want to aggregate information from lots of systems together. And it might just be 1 or 2 data analysts with a few Power BI skills, or it might be a whole team of, data scientists analyzing that data. But that pattern is becoming more common than, just having a sales manager run some charts and dashboards inside CRM. There's typically other elements of data they need to combine with the CRM data in order to get a richer set of intelligence. So I think
From other systems,
yeah. So I think the Power BI story is very strong. Like Matt said, it takes a bit more engineering to set it up, but it's worth it. And more and more companies have already started that investment already anyway.
Yeah. One thing I love about the out-of-the-box charts and dashboards is that they light up immediately as soon as you open Dynamics, or if you import any data, like users will see all these bars and, funnels and whatever, and they're like, wow, that looks cool. But beyond that, I think, Power BI is where it's at. I don't remember the last time I won a deal because of the out-of-the-box charts and dashboards, but I remember deals that I've won because of Power BI. Like I've shown the pins on a map or whatever, the columns that, go up in a map to show your revenue and stuff, which is,
You're just not,
you can kind of do in Excel too, but
you're just
it's
not
all
old
like the
enough
same
to
kind of feeling.
remember competing against Salesforce.com. The charts were a huge benefit competing against Salesforce.com because their
For a
charts,
while.
they
were
were not real time at all. They only updated like every 24 hours. And if you wanted to get the latest data from a chart, you had to click the button and then sit waiting for it to go out and recalculate.
So it was like goals. It was like goals,
Yeah.
basically.
Yeah,
Within
so
talk about because
that was the biggest thing. Back in the day, we used to compete against Salesforce directly all the time. I mean, we still do, but I mean, just in a small business, when I used to do more small business implementations, you'd show Salesforce and Dynamics side by side and be able, look, these charts are right there. Let's look at the Salesforce one. Okay, now while that's going, let's continue talking about Dynamics.
That's awesome. All right, guys. Well, thank you so much for covering these 10 features of the Sales app. Love it or hate it. I think that, again, by us talking about our experiences with them and whether we like these pieces of functionality or not, or they should be enhanced or whatnot, people learn from this. And hopefully we get to do this again with some other app or some other piece of functionality in the future. But if people are listening to the show and they have questions for you guys, where can they go and reach you? Neil, let's start with you.
If they have questions about anything in this episode, they can go to your LinkedIn profile, Gus, and ask you.
Sure. I'll follow them.
If they want to follow me, they're welcome. It's linkedin.com/in/Neil Benson. I'm on customery.com, and it's my own podcast is called amazingapps.show.
Do you still have the Scrum podcast? Or did that stop?
Yeah, I renamed. So Scrum Dynamics is now the Amazing App Show. So we talk about building amazing agile applications, maybe with Scrum, but agile isn't part of every episode now.
Nice. How about you, Matt?
Well, I have to direct people to my LinkedIn as well, since Neil and Amy Holden helped me to pimp it out. So I hope it's improved. So yeah, LinkedIn, it's Matt Whitteman, but Twitter, Matt NC is my handle, and or my blog, mattwhitteman.com.
Nice. Thank you guys so much for being on the show. And again, for those of you, if you have any questions for them, you can reach out to them directly, or you can send it to us, info@crmmvppodcast.com. I'm happy to forward the email to this, guys. You can also leave comments on the episode, crmmvppodcast.com. All of the episodes are there. You can leave comments there. I noticed that we posted a teaser for this episode a couple days ago, and people started asking questions on Facebook and LinkedIn, and you guys have been engaging there and answering questions. So thank you guys for doing that. But other than that, we'll see you on the next one.